So I'm going to, slim this down, trim it down, I should say. So, yeah, I'm just going to kind of slice up any excess that is there. Whoop. Going the wrong way. Let's try this way. Okay, so we'll clean up a little bit more there. So yeah, there's two kind of outfits that the character is going to have, so they'll be sort of swapped in and out. Again, I'm going to solo this, isolate the head. There we go. I will duplicate. And the other thing is this thing looks asymmetrical from what I can tell. Which is fine, but you want to have the character in a neutral pose. No smile, no smirk, no expression, nothing of that sort. So I'm going to go to just do a mirror and weld to sort of see. Okay, so it's not that bad. That's fine. So the asymmetry isn't terrible, so I'm going to just try to kind of even it out a bit. And I might prefer the other side, so I'm going to mirror that over. That seems a bit more neutral, okay? So again, working on a copy. Again, I might duplicate this one more time just because this does have the asymmetry. And again, it's always good to have a bit of a template or reference. Now, one thing I have tried, and it's not always the worst thing, is to honestly just go right into remesher. So sometimes just as a trial, I'll say, I'll try it. Let's go to 10,000 polys and see what it does, okay? Okay, so it's just a one click. It's actually not terrible in terms of topology, but again, I'm gonna go with my preferred method just because I find it's a little more work, but I think the results ultimately are better. So let's go in and mask. Okay, I'm going to try this intersection. Okay, I'll turn off the transparency, the solo mode there. Okay, so I'll try that Z plugin. I'll see if it works, but intersection masker. Still nothing. Yeah, usually the good thing about that intersection masker is it would kind of mask automatically the eyeball area, but that's fine. I'll just do it manually. Yeah, it can be tough too to decide, you know, what should be masked or what shouldn't, or what edge are you kind of considering the eyelid edge. So these are good times to sort of define those things a bit better. Okay. Now, we can go through this process, but I actually want to show you, I realize, another method to doing this. If you go to polycount wiki base mesh, I'll show you an alternative method here. Now, there's other sources too that you can use, but you can literally download a working low poly head and then simply divide up what you need. So there's a couple here. This one's a bit more detailed, so you may not want to use it for stylized characters. This one's ultra simple, but again, fairly effective. So there's a few there's a number of them out there that are kind of free, usable. Let's see, I'm going to go into, let's go to, by the way, if you import an OBJ, you always want to select a generic object first, like a sphere, a cylinder, whatever. Oops, just make sure that's unzipped. Okay, so we'll see that there. There's the base topology. This thing also, I can't remember if it has teeth and gums. I think, yeah, just a couple like half spheres for eyeballs. So I'll basically, I'll just quickly auto group this and then delete hidden. So we'll jump back to our character mesh here. I'll go to append. Append. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so there's the appended head. Clearly we have to do some repositioning there. Oops. So I'll just scale it down. Okay, so I'll go into solo for a second, or maybe transparency. So again, just big move brush, kind of nudge things into an approximate position. Okay, so this is totally valid too. You can use this method if you like for your film. For your project, I don't mind. Okay, symmetry. So I'm just going to do a mirror and weld there. Sorry, a little problem with the mirror and weld. I'm just going to do it again. There. Okay. I'm just going to clean this up because I've kind of inadvertently created some double edges in here. So you can do that just by going into Z Modeler and maybe alt-clicking and deleting some edges, or you can try to let's see, do what's called a weld points. So if I increase my weld threshold a little bit, the weld distance, and hit weld points, that should clean up those excess lines. Okay. So I'm kind of just trying to prepare the model and myself for projection. So again, just trying to get as much stuff into a very approximate position. So a little bit of move, a little bit of smoothing. Sometimes I inflate, sometimes I drag things around here. Okay, so we'll try. It looks very goofy right now, but let's just do a quick projectile. So again, keep in mind this mesh is 1100, 1130 polys. Multiplied by 4, that's about 4400. Multiplied by 4, that's 17,000, which is fine for a base mesh, okay? So let's try a little project all. Before doing this, again, I'll go to store morph target, and then I'll do project all. Let's see. Subtool. Project all. Project all. We'll check out the ear. Looks like it's a bit warped, a bit deflated, but that's fine. I'll just go back and reinflate. Sometimes too, the distance slider, this is something else to keep in mind. If the surfaces are too far apart, okay, there's a distance slider. So increasing that number can cause some really rough stuff. Like you see the nostril, if I solo this here, the nostril's like inside out, right? So sometimes this is a bit difficult to manage, but again, if I go back to B for brush, B for brush, M for morph, and then G, you can morph those problems back out. And this thing does have, I think, yeah, these little like nasal extrusions inwards. We could, for now, hide them and delete them and then just kind of restore them later on because we don't really need the depth because there's no actual, I think, extrusion in there anyway. So just go to delete hidden, project all, and that can kind of help clear up some of those issues. Okay, I'm going to, yeah, just smooth back the lips a bit too. And we'll go back to the character. Oh yeah, and this neck, of course, is like crazy wide here, so. Oops, go back to move. So you also see the color kind of popping through as well, right? Project all. So the closer you kind of get between the two surfaces, the better it will kind of line up. Gonna go to solo, go into transparency mode. Yeah, there's a huge gap back here. So there's nothing to say you can't borrow or use a pre-existing mesh. That's totally valid. And again, it can save you a lot of time. You know, there's a little bit more time in terms of finessing this into position, but there are some pretty decent payoffs in the end. Like not having to worry about the structure. You know the underlying structure is good, you just have to position it in the right spots, okay? Project all. Solo, so again, we're seeing it kind of come to life here, right? And again, I'll tweak this by deleting the polygroups I don't need. Like this is all excess stuff here that I'm really not going to use or be needing. Right, so delete hidden, get out of solo for a second. I just want to see the base. Again, I got to match this up a little better, so I'm going to use a fairly large move brush and kind of dial that in. I'll go to double-sided as well to make sure I can see it from different angles here. So yeah, you can try to match it as best you can or kind of have an approximate shape for the base. As long as it's sort of covering the same area, it should be pretty decent overall. There we go. So again, I'll divide, project all. When you get a gap, by the way, a distance, you see there's kind of a problem with the distance here. Again, you just want to go to your base and make sure those shapes are as close as possible. So a lot of times I hold Alt and then use the move brush to kind of nudge the depth for that into the right sort of spot or a more accurate spot. Another issue that can kind of pop up as you're doing this work is that yeah, you can't smooth open borders. That's kind of a thing with the smooth brush that exists. Okay, let's just go to project. It's getting a little better there. Like I said, you can try dialing up the projection distance, but you risk things like this. The ear kind of folding in past itself, popping through, okay? So that's something that can happen. Or you see the mouth here is spiking everywhere. So if I were to hide some loops, you can see that issue, okay? See these god-awful spikes? So I put this in my custom interface. If you hold shift, there's this thing called, this is called minimum connected points. If you don't have my interface loaded, you go to brush. I think it's under, where is it? Smooth brush modifiers, minimum connected. If you dial this down to 2, now when you go to smooth, just to show you, you can actually now smooth borders. It's not as effective, but if you go down to 1, holding shift, you have to do it on this specific smooth brush. Now you can actually smooth those border points, okay? So those will allow you to kind of get some of that back. But that's why I will do a store morph target, so I can kind of erase some of those weird spikes that can occur, okay? So yeah, this is a bit bit of a train wreck in here, but that's okay. We'll fix this in a second. So sometimes a little bit of just smoothing and reprojecting helps as well. Project all. Yeah, if you, as you see, like the mouth is getting worse and worse, right? So this is where you'd want to do some custom polygroups. So I'll go through with the loop select option here with the, why is that happening? There we go. So I'll just quickly go into auto group here. Organization, auto group. So you can kind of hide, then unhide, and just regroup that quickly. So again, I'll take this section and sort of split that off. So I usually like to have an upper and lower group. So that's why I usually like to have at least 2 loops, top and bottom. For some reason, that is also going through. Okay, Control W for that. So that's its own group. Right, so now you can kind of quickly isolate that lip and sort of determine, is there a problem here? Is there a problem elsewhere? Okay, so I'll go up in resolution 1 or 2 times. And then, again, if I'm doing a projection at each layer, I'll have to delete and create a new one. So delete, store, and I'll try a project all. Sorry, project all. Yeah, I think I'm still kind of not catching the depth here on the eyes quite right. So I'll get out of solo. Use the transparency mode. Again, what's great about having a low res is that if you go right down to the bottom resolution, you can, without having to move hundreds or potentially thousands of vertices, you just do it right at the low level. And it gives you a certain amount of control that actually working at full res or higher res just doesn't. So it's, again, very, very beneficial to have a base resolution for a number of reasons. This being a key one. Okay, so I'll jump up. I'll try project at the base res first. Let's try that. Project all. Then I'll move up from there. So I'll solo my low res again. So again, I can just kind of go in and isolate now that lower lip and even just sort of soften and blend that strange spiking edge. So either smoothing or using that morph tool are both perfectly useful ways of kind of managing some of these projection issues, right? Yeah, and clearly the mouth isn't quite in the right spot there, so. And if you're distracted too by the paint, that's fine. You can just turn off colorize. That can also be a bit useful. Okay, and then again, I'll go back to delete, store, I'm just trying to line up those eyelids. Project all. And I'll turn back my minimum connected to 3, just so I don't alter the offset there. Undo a little bit. Looks like I'm getting some like weird folding happening here too, so okay. Yeah, something else that could help, I might do this now, is just go to close holes. So I'm having some other kind of weird issues here. I'll go to close holes. This will require any higher subdivision levels be deleted, so I'll just do that now. Close holes. Yeah, and this way I can kind of better move some of these points around. Yeah, I think this is where this method can struggle, especially with, like, let's say stylized characters. If there's an extreme difference between your stylized character and a more human mesh, that's where having a custom topology can be more useful. Okay, I'm just going to divide up now and check my projections. Yeah, it's not too bad. Oh, I see. The other issue is I've left the eyeballs on, so again, I'm getting that weird issue where it's bouncing between do I project to the eyeballs or not. So I'll turn those off. That should help this out quite a bit. There we go. Now I'm getting a much, much better result. Okay. Again, any spikes, I have a tendency to just either smooth out or use that morph target trick. Okay, so we can kind of smooth out the spikes there. Now, as you look at this too, this is now the refined mesh here, okay? Again, I probably need to tweak some of these vertices a bit more, but I think you get the idea that basically we kind of create our rough topology here, or use an existing one, and then we can create a cleaner mesh either by hand or through grabbing something off the shelf, right? So what would happen, I would say, in production here, I think I made another little mistake, nothing too crazy, but I don't have a mouth cavity in here, so I'd go in and kind of close that opening, close that area. Yeah, retopologize a bit. But this, for the most part, is working fairly well. So, as I mentioned, you can work ultra low poly, and the benefit of this, you see my active poly count, it was very quick to edit and manipulate some of these edges and these polygons. And then if I move up to, let's say, 4,000, not a bad base. 17,000, that would be a totally fine low res base, okay? So I'm gonna just go to delete lower res, so delete lower. And we'll pretend I've done the mouth cavity and all that. I haven't bothered with it yet, but so I'm gonna isolate this lower group. I'll just go to auto groups so I can basically differentiate that bottom area. Auto group. This is that little line, by the way, that's between the lips. I would extrude that back, inflate it, make it the mouth bag, right? In this case, I'm going to just unhide everything. Control-Shift-click on that. Go to Delete Hidden. Okay. And now that's something you could potentially go right to Maya with, okay? So I'll show you what that looks like just briefly. I'll do just a rough kind of UV as well. Just using these polygroups, just go in here and go to UV map. I'll just kind of create a simple 4K map of this. Texture map, create from polypaint. Then I'll go down to the base, resolution. Hit Go Z. So here is the model, and here it is with the texture, right? Low res, ready for animation blend shapes, okay? Yeah, as I was saying, you can either in the low res or the high res or both. You can go down, and if you want to create kind of like, usually with stylization, you have kind of like nice, big, smooth, soft areas, and then these kind of hard ridges, which I feel like you've got a bit of. So you can go through with B for brush, P for pinch, and pinch certain features together. So that will kind of almost force a bit of hard shapes, hard edges. Again, I usually will try to do this before remeshing because you don't want that topology to kind of become like diamond shaped across the edges. Or alternatively, you can just go to the high res because this will bake out as a normal map where you basically go through. In this case, I prefer to use something like Dam Standard at a low amount, and then you can kind of like, let's say draw in a hard edge, create a harder crease here, okay? And then I will tend to soften up to the edge. So you can kind of smooth up to that to almost create a flat zone or, yeah. And you can do the shift, let go of shift when you smooth to sort of average the surface out there. Nice thing about this too is you can do this at different levels. So this will carry up through the division levels as well, okay? So you can have much more kind of clearly defined shapes this way, and then have that bake out as a normal map, or be part of the textures, or both. Okay. Same thing with the lips. Maybe we can define the lips a bit. I don't think I've quite hit the lip line. You see it's a bit off there, but that's fine. I can always refine that as well. I'll just jump to the paintbrush for a second. Hit C. Oops, I think I've got texture on, so I'll just turn that off for now. So yeah, we do want a very neutral sort of face, okay, for the project. And yeah, usually it's at this point when I've kind of transferred all the details, I would pretty much discard the other head mesh once I've got all my projections done and everything. Not sure if I'm on the right version. So I gotta just check which one I'm actually on here. There we go, that one. All right, so he looks good. Yeah, like I said, maybe the proportions I've shifted a little bit from mirroring and things like that, so I'm gonna just kind of tweak a bit of that as well. Okay. Just to briefly mention for the rest of the body and whatnot, I usually will just, very similar to sushi rigging, just anywhere where there's a joint, you want to slice and create a polygroup. All right, so major joints will get a split. Wrists, finger joints, shoulders. Okay, that's kind of the shorthand.